All eyes on the Lone Star State. The Senate seat is up for grabs as a veteran incumbent faces his toughest primary yet. Redrawn maps are shaking up Congress, while a wide-open race for Attorney General transforms the power structure in Austin. The polls, the players, the path to victory. This is Battleground Texas.
Hello, I'm Greg Grugan in Houston. Early voting polls have officially opened across all 254 Texas counties today, and the eyes of the nation are on the Republican U.S. Senate primary. As recent polls show, incumbent John Cornyn is facing the fight of his political life against Attorney General Ken Paxton and Congressman Wesley Hunt. Paxton and Hunt are aggressively courting the MAGA base, framing Cornyn as a relic of the establishment. On the Democratic Senate side, the primary battle between Jasmine Crockett and James Tallarico has become a duel of styles. Crockett's combative, viral-ready approach versus Tallarico's faith-based biblical populism. In a massive show of force on this first day of voting, the Texas Democratic Party and a coalition of national groups have unveiled a $30 million effort to flip Texas in 2026. And tonight, the four Republicans vying to succeed Ken Paxton as Attorney General will square off in a high-profile debate at the Granada Theater in Dallas. U.S. Representative Chip Roy, State Senators Joan Huffman and Mays Middleton, and former DOJ official Aaron Reitz will meet at 7 to debate. Let's bring in my colleague Stephen Dial in Dallas to discuss the day's issues. Good grief, Stephen, where do we even start? What's piquing your political interest?
Yeah, it's such a slow news day, Greg. Man, I just came from chatting with Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, who went to vote. We'll talk about that later in the show. Senator John Cornyn voted early today, too, and he had some words about Ken Paxton. They have been going back and forth. So the Senate race is the big ticket event, and that's what all people are really talking about today. And Cornyn said if Republican voters choose to vote for Ken Paxton, they're basically, to sum up what he was saying, is giving a death wish and making the Republican Party vulnerable, Greg.
Stephen, that Republican AG debate will likely be the last head-to-head gathering before the primary. Do you expect serious fireworks tonight?
Yeah, I mean, you have to look at candidates like Aaron Reitz, who has to start throwing some haymakers and hoping that the media will play it over and over again. He needs more airtime and not just the ads of Ken Paxton endorsing him, because clearly that's not sticking in that hobby school polling at 4th.
All right, Governor Greg Abbott has been playing the role of kingmaker for the past few months, endorsing candidates he supports. At this hour, he is wrapping up a statewide get-out-the-vote swing. Before he hit the road, he voted and then took some questions about this midterm showdown.
These elections are going to determine what the future of Texas is going to be. There are so many people in this state who want to see maybe one thing more than anything else, and that is to keep Texas, Texas.
Governor, President Trump weighed in on a couple of Texas elections last night. He made an endorsement in Texas 9 that did not include Briscoe Cain. Did that surprise you? And does it surprise you that he's staying out of the Senate race?
So listen, obviously he has his own decision-making process about what races he gets in and gets out. I will tell you about Briscoe Cain, though, real quick, and that race is personal to me because I've dealt very closely with Briscoe Cain for years, working side by side with him on key pieces of legislation that needed to be passed that are making Texas a better state. And I know and trust Briscoe Cain, his value set, his work ethic, his ability to get things done, whether it be in the Texas House or the United States House.
As a follow-up, are you going to wade into the Senate race, make an endorsement today?
So, I started saying endorsement a little bit too late because I already voted. But listen on the Senate race. Now, some of these other races, I know all these people. They're all friends of mine, and I'm not going to be making any endorsements.
Governor, in regards to the school choice, the education freedom accounts, you tweeted out the other day, wow, what a response. And do you think a lot of these school walkouts are having people rethink their non-support of that?
So for the first part, and that is we are very pleased with the robust turnout of applications for people who want to register for school choice. It validates why we did the program to begin with, and that is we knew there was a very strong appetite by parents as well as by students to have an option to go to a school that would be a better education pathway for each of those children. With regard to your second question, listen, there have been story after story after story by parents or by seniors who are angry about the walkouts and protests because they make a very simple point, and that is their taxpayer dollars are being used to educate our children, not to have those children skip class, not get educated for the day. It's not as if the children in the state of Texas are all making perfect scores on their reading and math tests. Every moment in school is very important, and we are going to put these children on an education pathway to be more successful, better educated, and performing better on these standardized tests.
In a tweet yesterday from your campaign account, you wished the president happy President's Day 247 from 48. Any double meaning there in 2028?
No double meaning.
Our colleague Rudy Koski throwing those questions there. Stephen, most will agree with what the governor said. The political stakes are high, especially here in Texas. When you voted or were covering the voting this morning, what was the mood like in line?
Yeah, so I did vote this morning, and luckily for me at my polling location, I was voter number 2, so it was pretty barren. But I have went around to some other voting locations, and there is energy. And we talk about this every 2 years or every 4 years about energy. Some people are just tired of the ads, Greg, and so they said, I'm going to vote on the first day to get it out the way so I can ignore everything. But there definitely is energy around North Texas.
Yeah, there's some discussion about the governor not making an endorsement, and I wasn't surprised. Ted Cruz made the same call. If you back the loser, the downside is a lifelong enemy occupying a powerful U.S. Senate seat. Better to hedge and watch the cage match from the sideline. What this neutrality indicates mostly is the vulnerability of four-term incumbent John Cornyn. All right, Battleground Texas will be right back. go. Welcome back. There is nothing more valuable, nothing more coveted in a Texas Republican primary than an official endorsement from President Donald Trump. In the battle for the reconfigured 9th Congressional District in Houston, combat veteran Alexandra Mealer just bagged the big prize. The nod from the commander-in-chief coincided with new numbers in the hotly contested race from the UH Hobby School, giving Mealer a 34-26 lead over nearest competitor, State Representative Briscoe Cain. Alex Mealer, there is nothing more coveted in a Republican primary than the full-throated endorsement of President Donald Trump. You have just received it. Your reaction?
No, couldn't be more proud or thrilled. Very clear that want to go to D.C., pass President Trump's America First agenda. We want to see Congress legislate again. Let's codify these executive orders, and then, as importantly, deliver real results for this district.
Your opponents have tried to make hay based upon the fact that you were not in the district, you're moving there, and you have a business there.
Exactly. So life savings are in the district, and more importantly, I do know the district better than anybody else. That's why the majority of mayors have endorsed me. Commissioner Ramsey, I just meant can't help Texas legislature drew me a few blocks out, but very invested, and you can see certainly moving as fast as we can, sold our house, and I don't know a bigger investment than putting your life savings into the health of the district.
You're polling in the 30s now. That was before you got the Trump endorsement. Do you think you're going to make it to that 50 mark on March 3rd?
Definitely possible. So just trying to get the word out, and I think there's enough interest aligned being the petrochemical hub. I mean, 20% of Texas economy in this district, that if you're not a serious person rolling up your sleeves, I don't think you last long.
Opponent Briscoe Cain posting on X today, proud to vote for myself for Congress today. Unlike Alex Mealer, I actually live in CD9 and always have. And challenger Dan Mims in third position started the day by thanking Dwayne Stovall, who has now suspended his campaign, posting, Stovall is a patriot and a good man. I am proud to have his support at this crucial moment in the campaign. Okay, joining us now, along with Stephen Dial in Dallas, uber political analyst from Rice University, Mark Jones. Mark, how significant is this endorsement from the president for Alex Mealer?
Well, this is a massive win for Alex Mealer. Our polling shows that about 50% of likely Republican primary voters said they will be more likely to vote for a candidate endorsed by Donald Trump, compared to only 10% who say they'd be less likely. This is in a case where Mealer already had an 8-point lead over Briscoe Cain, her only real rival in District 9, and had far higher favorability ratings than does Cain. While she has a net favorability rating up in the 30s, Cain's is in the single digit. This is something that, if maybe it doesn't seal the deal for Mealer, it does put her actually in a very good position not only to finish first on March 3rd, but potentially get 50% plus one, or at least over 50%, and find herself not having to go into a May 26 runoff.
Stephen, folks in this race have worked hard to portray Mealer as a political carpetbagger moving into the district to exploit an opportunity. Does that once potent argument still work in 2025 in the reality we live in?
It depends on what voter you are courting. Now, to the voter who's very informed, those diehards who show up in primaries, they may take that seriously and say, hey, this person is an outsider. But to the person who sees President Trump endorsing her, and to the person who is just seeing the most visible candidate in their opinion, they don't really consider that much, Greg.
Okay, everybody, Battleground Texas is heating up, and there's plenty more to talk about on the other side of this break.
You might have heard of this thing called the equal time rule, okay? It's an old FCC rule that applies only to radio and broadcast television, not cable or streaming, that says if a show has a candidate on during an election, they have to have all that candidate's opponents on as well.
That's Stephen Colbert's opening Monday night late night show by explaining how CBS and his lawyers, in his words, barred him from airing the interview with U.S. Senate candidate James Tallarico. Colbert explained for a long time there's been an exception to the FCC equal time rule for talk shows, but that the FCC chairman has proposed dropping this exception. As a workaround, he posted the interview on YouTube, and CBS has since responded, and in their words, in their statement, saying that they told Stephen Colbert to make an invitation to all of the Democratic Senate candidates. Now, that aside, some of the candidates voted today. I caught up with Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. She was fired up, a little more than normal, talking about the electability question.
I am tired of people asking whether or not I am electable. The reality is that that is nothing but dog whistle. If you got a super PAC that's doing your bidding, then they need to go ahead and lift you up. What they shouldn't be doing is tearing down a black woman who, number one, is more qualified. These are just the facts. At the end of the day, I am the only one that has owned a small business. I am the only one that has actually practiced law both on the state level and the federal level. I am the only one that has been elected to do work on the state level as well as the federal level. And frankly, I did all of that, and we know that as it relates to my opponent. And God bless, because my dad is a teacher, so I don't want anybody to get this twisted. But he had 2 years where he taught charter school. And then after that, he went into the State House, and then he became a consultant for charter.
Mr. Tallarico has been up with a ton of ads this entire campaign.
Yeah.
Do you have any regrets about your campaign strategy?
I don't. Listen, I think that Texans need to, number one, understand that Republicans are going to outspend us come November. This is just the reality. If we spend $100 million, they're going to spend $200 million. And if the only way that you can get through an election is by spending money, then we're going to have a problem anyway. We've tried that. We need a candidate that, yes, can raise money, and I am the 5th highest fundraising member of the House. So, yes, we need somebody that can get the resources. But more importantly, we need somebody who has a rapport with the people, because when we don't have enough money, because we will not match their money no matter who the candidate is, we never have, we are going to need a little extra something. I am tired of people telling me they don't know how they're going to afford to buy a home. I am tired of people telling me that the tariffs are making them shut down their businesses. This is not who we're supposed to be, and don't get me started on ICE and how we need to rein them in.
On the eve of the first day of early voting, State Representative James Tallarico, who is also running for Senate, was slated to appear on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. But that interview only aired on YouTube.
This is the party that ran against cancel culture, and now they're trying to control what we watch, what we say, what we read. And this is the most dangerous kind of cancel culture, the kind that comes from the top.
All right, our friend Mark Jones from Rice University is back with us, and Greg Grugan. Mark, you first. Now that the starting gun has really started, I mean, people are voting now. How do you see this Senate race on the Democrat side?
This is a very competitive race where I think both Crockett and Tallarico have a realistic prospect of victory. Tallarico has really closed the gap that had existed initially when Crockett first jumped into the campaign. In many ways, he out-hustled her during the month of December and January, as well as outspent her. I guess I have been a little surprised at how negative the Tallarico camp has gone against Jasmine Crockett, particularly the super PAC supporting him, in the sense that they're raising some issues that you often generally don't see in the Democratic primary, as Congresswoman Crockett mentioned, related to this dog whistle issue.
Greg, name ID was the thing that Jasmine Crockett has said that she will lean on. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, James Tallarico has created statewide ID at light speed. I mean, he has eclipsed her advantage there. He's just as well known as she is now, so that's an even playing field. On the other side of this, You know, when Jasmine Crockett is defending her electability, old school me says, if you're on the defense, you're not on the offense. And when you're defending, you're losing. So, you know, I don't know. Maybe I'm old-fashioned. She needs to get out there and buy some old-fashioned commercials, because that's how it's done.
And she's up on the air. She's up on the air.
Okay. Full-blown political warfare raging all across Battleground Texas. More to unpack with the Fox Texas Trio and Mark Jones when we come back. Welcome back. Combat busting loose all over Battleground Texas on this first day of early voting. Another highly coveted Trump endorsement proffered in Texas 38. The Congressional District Wesley Hunt vacated to make his Senate bid. The president's pick from no fewer than 10 Republicans seeking the nomination is business executive John Bonk, who sat atop the latest hobby school poll with 32% of the vote, a 9-point advantage over his nearest competitor and likely runoff opponent Shelley DeZavalos. Fellows, this is a 65% GOP district and is highly unlikely to be in play come November. All right, Mark, what's on your radar?
Well, I think one thing that comes up in that 38 race, and we've also seen across most of the polling we're doing when we're south of the U.S. Senate race, is that a large portion of voters have no idea who these candidates are. In CD 38, in our poll, we found that more than half of likely Republican primary voters had no idea who these 10 candidates are. And that's something you're seeing across the state level as well as local level, where voter awareness of candidates outside of the Senate race is very low.
Quickly, Stephen, on your radar.
Yeah, no, the electability, the voter ID is interesting to me. There's so many races where people do not know who these candidates are. And I mean, everything seems normal to me as far as we see the election ads, we see the mailers that are going out. But this cycle, to me, something seems different. So we'll have to see if that materializes with the results. All right, that's all the time we have. To see this episode of our past ones, go to our station's YouTube channels and keep the conversation going by interacting with us on social media.
Join us tomorrow for the next edition of Battleground Texas when we hear from Trump nemesis 11-term Congressman Al Green, who is waging a primary fight for political survival. See you then. In the meantime, vaya con Dios.